Welcome to Making Your Own Road. I'm Nathan Furr from the Rollins Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology in the BYU Marriott School of Management. Today, my guests are a couple of cousins who share more than a family tree. Reed Quinn and Michelle Quinn Thompson teamed up to make a therapeutic kinesiology tape used to treat muscle pain and increase mobility available to athletes and consumers throughout North America. Their efforts got them the first runner-up prize at the 2008 Global Moot Court Competition, the nation's oldest and most respected business plan competition for university students. Both have close ties to China, where Reed worked with hundreds of Chinese manufacturers to develop custom products for more than half of the top 100 U.S. retailers. Michelle has experience with social entrepreneurship and worked in Ghana with a micro-franchise initiative sponsored by the group Freedom from Hunger. Reed and Michelle are both BYU graduates, and it's a pleasure to have them with us today. Thanks for coming. So it's especially fun to have both of you because you are such recent BYU success stories. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And we're excited to hear all about your adventures with KT Tape and where that came from and how you developed it. And we'll hopefully drill down on kind of some of the specifics that students and people who are watching can use to build their own businesses. But before, give us a little bit more background about yourselves. Tell us about, what you did in school and how did you get involved in entrepreneurship? Maybe Michelle and then Reed.
Sure. Well, I did my undergrad in political science here at BYU and had the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill. And I think that's actually the first place that I became interested in entrepreneurship. Just seeing so many people passionate about different ideas and lobbying for different things that they believed in. That's where I think I first really became interested in it. But it was probably working in Ghana last year, actually, before I graduated from the MBA program. I worked with rural entrepreneurs, women who were starting their own businesses and becoming franchisees in different areas in Ghana, and seeing how they were passionate about starting their own businesses and going forward there and seeing that grow. And then when I came back to school for my final year, heard about what Reed was up to and was able to get involved.
Wow, that's great. That's very, very interesting background. So thank you. Reed, how about yourself?
Well, I made a decision very early on before I even graduated. I was an econ major at BYU doing my undergraduate, and getting down to the last 6 months before I graduated and trying to decide what I was going to do. And I remember speaking with one of my uncles, and he said, you can go and work for a large company, and you'll learn to do one thing very, very well. They'll kind of herd you like cattle through a training program, and you'll be excellent at inventory management, or you'll be excellent at whatever you choose to do. But if you work for a smaller company, you'll do a lot of different things, and you'll never get very good at any one of those. But it will give you a little bit more scope, and that may be what you want before you go back and do an advanced degree. And so I took that advice and chose to work for a little startup that was from my hometown, originally from Falmouth, Maine. And this company made boats, and I speak Chinese, and they wanted to move their operations over to China. And so very early on, I went to China, spent a year with a technology transfer where we were trying to teach them those processes for making boat hulls. And from then on, I've just been in products and in China and in small companies, and I've really enjoyed it.
That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's one thing many students wrestle with is, do I go work for a big company? Do I go work for a startup? And I always advise go work for a startup, but that's my bias. Maybe yours too.
Obviously ours as well.
Yours too, yeah. That's great. So tell me a little bit more about where the initial idea for KT Tape came from. I mean, in the introduction, we talked about you worked in products, in particular with sports retailers. But tell me more, where did it evolve from? I mean, did you just wake up one day and you knew what to do?
We certainly didn't. In fact, I was working for a company called Seastone, and we worked developing consumer products and selling them into mass retail, and that company was for sale and was going to be sold, and we knew a year ahead of time that was going to happen. And several of us that worked for that company, we kind of have a system here. where we find out what people want and we go and we develop that product, and then we know the process for introducing that to the market. And so we started to develop some products, and we spent a lot of time and energy on 2 products. Initially, one that was a mosquito repelling light bulb. It was a fixture that actually, gave off a wavelength of light that mosquitoes couldn't stand.
Yeah.
And then another one that timed your Christmas lights to music. So you could plug it into the radio or to your own, your iPod, and your Christmas lights would kind of dance with the music. And we really liked those products, and we developed them. I actually have some of them here today. But it never got off the ground. We had a real hard time with the economy. Most of the people who make purchasing decisions were told, hey, look, 1 in 5 of these products has got to go. We really need to reduce the SKU count. And here we were trying to sell them new products that they didn't carry. And so we were kind of getting a little bit discouraged with these 2 products. And we had identified some things that, if the product was a lower price point, if the product was, had some media coverage, if the product, and we made kind of a list of things that the current products we were working with lacked. And it was actually during the Beijing Olympics in August of 2008 that we saw MSNBC spend 10, 12 minutes talking about this black tape on a beach volleyball player, Kerry Walsh's shoulder. And one of my former coworkers at Seastone called me up and said, are you watching this? Do you see this? And we started talking about it, and we kind of divvied it up right then. We said, okay, you go talk to some buyers at sporting good retailers. I'll go source it in China. We'll look into FDA, and we just kind of parsed up. And if any of these things don't fall into place, we'll move on. But the more that we looked into it, the more that it just seemed like a perfect fit for what we needed right then, and so we ran with it. So.
Wow, that's interesting. And the tape, I'm unfamiliar with the story of the black tape on Kerry Walsh's shoulder. Was it special in any way, or was it just ordinary tape? I mean, what was the spark of the idea, or tell me more about that?
So it's actually, we call it an elastic athletic tape just to help people understand or have some kind of reference to what it is.
Yeah.
It's 100% cotton, and it's a uni-elastic tape that relieves pain and provides stability and support to sore muscles.
Yeah.
Kerry Walsh was wearing it, as well as a number of other professional athletes have been using it for a couple of decades. But the reason no consumers knew what it was is because it had never been available at a mass retail level. So consumers had never had access to it.
Yeah.
When Kerry wore it at the Olympics, suddenly millions of people saw the tape, were wondering what it was and how it works and why she's wearing it. And we realized this is an excellent opportunity to bring this product to market.
Yeah.
So we figured out some ways to make it more consumer friendly.
Yeah.
Reed and some of the other founders had the relationships with retail and were able to very quickly pitch them on the idea. So.
Wow, that's interesting. So, I mean, that's great. So here's this innovation that's sitting there, and you mentioned you've been using it for a long time, but totally unavailable to consumers. And I mean, anybody who's played sports before knows you use all kinds of products. And but I'm also interested in something you said about when you saw it on TV, and that is you called your friend and you started divvying it up right then. Is that right?
Yeah, and one of the things that really turned me onto the product is there's a tool in Google called Google Trends where you can see what is hot, what is actually being searched for in order. So you can go and see, number one, and number one was Michael Phelps, and number two was kinesiology tape. And how often do you have a product and it went from, the 20,000th most searched term up to the second most searched term, and stayed in the top 10 for about 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was that really convinced me that there was something there to this tape. And I had a lot of concerns with it at first. My initial reaction was like, how is this different than athletic tape? And the more that I learned about, it relieves pain. You wear it for 4 or 5 days instead of 4 or 5 hours. It moves with your skin. It's actually comfortable to wear. And how does this work? And does it need to be applied by a professional? Because that's what the companies that were selling the tape want you to believe is go and see your doctor or a sports medical professional. And the more that I learned about it, I thought, this is much easier than athletic tape to apply. This is a great fit for a consumer product. And the more that we learned, one of our no-go criteria was we need to get an endorsement agreement from Kerry Walsh. If we cannot connect ourselves with Kerry Walsh, then we can't ride this wave. We can't ride this wave of interest. And very quickly we found out, we can get an endorsement agreement with Kerry Walsh. No one else has approached her about it. The percentage that we're talking about is very reasonable.
Yeah.
And it all just fell into place.
So I have a question. So did you wait like a year to go talk to Kerry Walsh?
No, we.
How long?
A day maybe?
Maybe a few hours.
A few hours.
The coverage was. We got it at night. I think it was the next morning that we had identified her agent, and
You just Google it.
we're already talking.
You just identified it? You just Googled her agent?
Just Googled who's Kerry Walsh's agent.
Wow.
And told them, hey, we are launching a new brand of kinesiology tape. We think this is a great fit for her. And they said, all right, we'll send you over the endorsement agreement, and you can fill in the blanks. And
I guess I want to highlight something about your story that you may not recognize, and that is how fast you moved. I mean, to find that out in a few hours and call up, you moved really fast. And so that, I think, you could have waited a long time. You could have waited a year, and maybe somebody else would kind of already be moving on the idea.
We very quickly did get product into our hands. Immediately we were sourcing it out of China. We found 4 manufacturers in China, 2 in Korea, 1 in Japan. We got samples, compared the tape, decided what changes we needed to be made, and we had samples within 2 weeks of when we started there. And I'd say that it took us almost 2 months to close the agreement with Kerry Walsh. So by then we had actually already put her face on the packaging, mocked it up, printed it here locally, sent it to several retailers, all before we even had the endorsement agreement. So it was kind of all happening at the same time, because we needed to make sure that all of these things, we wanted to fail quickly if we were going to fail. We wanted to know that, something here is not going to work. Retailers don't have the interest, or, Kerry Walsh is not on board, or, but in order to keep the momentum going, we did have to move very quickly on multiple aspects at the same time.
Okay, so you were moving in parallel. What were kind of, what happened next in your story? You kind of have some early discussions. You're sending samples over. You're trying to get samples from China. What happened next? Was it all smooth sailing from there? Did you have money to do it?
No, well, it's very much bootstrapped from the beginning. I actually was at the Olympics working for NBC, so I wasn't even involved in the initial, this first year. So I didn't get involved with the company until later. Because I was on site in China.
Yeah, you were doing the work. Yeah.
But when I came back, it was a few months later before I became involved with the company. But Reed and the other founders had already been able to get in discussions very quickly with retailers. And I think that was a key move that they took, is that they began the discussion. It usually takes a very long time for people, they're planning their product lineup for the next year. It's very difficult to get in quickly to retailers. And because of the relationships they had, they were able to leverage them and get in front of the buyers more quickly. But also because the buyers had had so many consumers calling them, walking into their stores, asking for the product, the buyers were so anxious and excited to get the product on their shelves that we found it moved very quickly into the retail space.
So you had some relationships. I was going to ask you, what was the key to kind of nailing it down? You had some prior relationship.
The relationships were really pretty key. When in our previous business, most of our customers were discount, big box, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, those types of retailers. And what we found very quickly was, they'll let us put product in here, but with all sorts of stipulations. As in, if it doesn't sell X number of units a week, we're going to send it back to you. And that can get very, very expensive very quickly. And so we kind of lowered our sights a little bit, where we said, instead of trying to launch in Walmart initially, let's test this. We immediately put product on in Renner's Quarter, in the 8th North Gold Gym, in some different retail areas, and kind of saw how it would sell. And we talked to the associates, and asked them and gave them some training. And one of the other learnings that we very quickly found early on was, that the way to convert somebody to the product was to generate trial. If we could tape up somebody and get them to feel what it feels like to be taped up with kinesiology tape, we had a customer for life. But when somebody was just looking at a sea of braces and tapes and wraps and things like that, it was very hard to convert them just from the messaging on the box or something like that to make a purchase. I mean, here they have a roll of athletic tape on one hand for, I don't know, $3, and here's our tape for $13. Now, that tape, if you taped yourself every day for one injury, would last for 6 months. That roll of athletic tape is 2 months, 60 days. The roll of athletic tape would last you for, I don't know, maybe one taping, two tapings per roll. So it's a better deal, but to communicate that at the store level is very difficult. But as soon as we got somebody to try it, we could retain them as a customer. And so that kind of plays into our marketing strategy, which Michelle has worked a lot on. That's kind of her baby.
Tell us more about your marketing strategy. What is it? How did you develop it? How does it work?
Sure. Well, with really focusing, we've got a couple of different things going on. The main thing, though, as Reed mentioned, is trial and getting people to really interact with the tape. We started out by making little sample packets and putting them in, handing them out at races. We actually started, our first one was the Provo Run 13. We started locally, a half marathon here. But then we went on to the Eugene Marathon, we did the San Francisco Marathon, we did the California State Games. We just started trying at some of these more expensive events as we got more familiar with the process. So we started out by sampling. We put 2 strips of tape in a little packet and then inserted into the goodie bags for all the racers that they have to pick up with their registration kits. And we found that we'd get more hits on our website, that people were trying it out. We were getting feedback on our website and testimonials. But still, people had a lot of questions, and I don't think it was quite enough. But when we worked at the expos, selling the tape and offering to tape people up for free, that's where we saw a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So we kind of changed our strategy from just sampling into race kits and trying to hit a large geographic area, a large number of races throughout the country, rather than just putting those samples in and hoping people are going to go to the website and check it out themselves. We've been traveling to all of those expos, and we've shifted our strategy. It's also more cost-effective for us to be actually at the expos. So we have been spending almost every weekend of the past 4 or 5 months.
2 events in the same weekend.
2 or 3. We've had 3 events in the same weekend where we split up and bring friends or family members or hire locals to come and help us. And we work at the expos before big marathon or triathlete or cycling events. And basically they're 2-day expos, and we tape people up from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and it's pretty much nonstop.
There's no time to eat. There's no time to go to the bathroom.
We are just hounded the entire time with a line going out of our booth, blocking other vendors. It's really been fun to see the mass interest that's been generated just by taping people up for free. And so we do 1 taping for free, and if they like it, they'll buy a product, and then we'll tape them up some more. But it's been extremely rewarding to watch consumers react to the tape, because a lot of times they come in, they're kind of skeptical, they see the box, but you open it, you take it out of the box for them, you let them feel it on their skin, you actually tape up their knee or you tape up their shin splints, you let them rip it off like this and feel it. They walk around, they stand up and walk around, and they say, oh my gosh, I can't feel the pain anymore, and it's instant.
And the tape is very visible. It's like clothing. People see it. It looks a little bit strange, and so they ask about it, and it spreads pretty virally. But still, contrast that maybe 300 or 400 people that we can touch with samples to the maybe 2,000 or 3,000 that we can tape up with 3 people taping over a 2 or 3 day expo. And, we probably sell a roll of tape to half of the people that we tape up.
I'd say
maybe
more so.
Yeah.
I think we sell, a lot of people will buy it just by walking by, but once we've taped someone up, I'd say at least 85% purchase the tape after we've taped them up.
I mean, we usually send, an ample amount of product to an event, and we have had lots of events where we have sold out, where we've had to raise the price because we're running out, and we still sell out. It just is a very hot item.
That's great.
So,
now, I have one more question for you, and that is, as a startup with very little money, how do you finance something where you have to buy a product in advance of when you sell it? How did you guys tackle that money problem?
Well, there were two major breakthroughs for us. We are self-funded. We did not end up taking any investor capital, which is very unusual for a business like us. One of the things that has helped a lot is as we sourced the factory, we found one that had was more of a conglomerate. You know, they had a lot of different types of business. We were not going to be their principal customer, and we were able to negotiate very favorable terms. The other thing is we found a company that would do factor financing, where we can take an order from Dick's Sporting Goods and hand it over to our factor. As soon as the product is delivered, we can say we would like 80% of the funds from this order. Let's say that the order's $100,000. They would actually cut us a check for $80,000 that day. And then for the interest would accrue on that money for the period of time between when the product was delivered and when we collected funds from the retailer, which could be 3 months. You know, a lot of our retailers have 90-day terms. And then at the end of that period of time, the factor deducts their funds, which usually comes out to a couple percent, maybe 3 or 4% of the total, and then they release the rest of the funds to you. And we actually have not had to dip into that too heavily, but you know, our factory has floated over $100,000 worth of inventory for us with the terms that we negotiated. So that has been a lifesaver. We would not have been able to grow as quickly as we have without that line of credit from them. So.
And since negotiating those terms, I think we did earn a significant amount of money from the business plan competitions in which we participated, which really helped.
Never hurts.
Never. And then also we've just really we've revised our marketing strategy and some of our other strategies to be more cost effective, whereas before we were sampling and not really selling and getting anything back, but we've been careful to scale back and focus on those activities that can break even and that we aren't actually losing money on, but still getting a far reach.
Mainly, you've covered a lot of ground. So you highlighted the importance of moving quickly. So you spotted an opportunity. You moved quickly. You didn't move. You had a set of fail quickly criteria. You said go, no go criteria. So you highlight what were your assumptions and what would have to be true for you to pursue this. And I really like that because you moved quickly, but you didn't move blindly. You didn't say, well, we're going to do this no matter what. You said, well, let's figure out if it works. You did your activities in parallel, so that helped you move more quickly, do lots of things at once. You highlighted for us how to kind of attack retail. Most of us would think, oh, just go right after Walmart, go after the big player. But you showed the value of creating some relationships, starting focused, maybe even low end, learning how it really works to sell the product, and then once you've got a success case, scaling it up from there. So through testing and getting data. So I really like that. I loved how you talked about the customer acquisition process and costs. So what is it that really sells our customer? And then this really important metric for entrepreneurs, which is how much does it cost us to get that customer? And you highlighted, it's nice to think over the lifetime of the customer, but to be sustainable, it's got to be, a break-even cost at least now. So this has been really great. It's been really fun. Thanks.
For more information on this program or to discover resources on becoming an entrepreneur, visit www.KT